Good evening, everyone. On behalf, wow, okay. On behalf of the Holly Springs Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome you to the 2025 Holly Springs Town Council Candidate Forum. My name is Tanya Palumbo, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Holly Springs Chamber. Before we begin tonight's program, I'd like to take a moment to honor the significance of today, September 11th. Please join me as we pause to remember the lives lost, the families forever changed, and the first responders who displayed extraordinary courage on that day 24 hours ago. Please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. I wanted to say thank you to the hard work that has gone behind the scenes here at the Cultural Center. We are the first ones to sit in these seats this evening. Also, I wanted to say thank you to the Holly Springs Police Department for increasing security measures for tonight's event, as well as next week's. Tonight's forum has been brought to you by the Holly Springs Chamber of Commerce and our Government Relations Committee. This event is made possible by the town of Holly Springs through its government support program. Over the past several weeks, the Chamber of Commerce has been collecting questions from the public. These questions were carefully reviewed and finalized less than 2 hours ago by the members of the Government Relations Committee. The Chamber of Commerce is a nonpartisan organization. We do not endorse any candidate or political party. The spirit of this forum is to ensure that voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates on the issues that matter most to our residents. We are grateful for every candidate who is participating in this forum. In addition to tonight's forum, the Government Relations Committee submitted questions to the candidates for the 2025 Voters Guide. All candidates participated in that process, and the guide will be available to the community and was available at the desk. There's a QR code in which you can chime into or look at that. I'd also like to invite you to next Thursday, September 18th, right here at the Cultural Center at 6 p.m. for the mayoral forum. Both candidates have agreed to participate. This evening will be moderated by Tim Congleton. Tim is a member of our community residing in the ETJ, and he cannot vote in Holly Springs elections. His role as moderator ensures neutrality and fairness throughout tonight's program. The time will be kept on an iPad at the front table for candidates to see. When time is up, an alarm will sound, and the candidates must finish their sentence, but only your sentence. A loud buzzer will be sounded should you go over. Please silence your phones. There will be no outbursts, heckling, or audible responses permitted from either attendees or candidates. Any violation of this expectation will result in immediate removal from the auditorium. Now let me briefly explain the format for tonight's forum. Each candidate will begin with a 2-minute opening statement. Each question will allow for a 2-minute response per candidate. We will conclude with 3-minute closing statements. The order of the questions will be randomly drawn. Every candidate will have the opportunity to answer each selected question. Thank you again for joining us tonight, and thank you for the candidates and you're willing to participate this evening.
We'll begin with the opening statements, and what we will do is we will draw names so that there's not any particular order. If it's like it's been in the past, there may be times when you get the question first, 2 or 3 times, but that is the random act of the draw, so to speak. So for the opening statements, I kind of shift these around a little bit. We'll begin with Kara.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you guys for being here. We all chose Holly Springs for the same reason. It feels like home. It's the place where our kids will grow up cheering at the Felton Grove games, attend the same Taekwondo studio, and where small businesses give this town its heart. I'm Kara Foster, a mom, small business owner, and an eye doctor who's been caring for local families for nearly 2 decades. I built my business from the ground up, so I know firsthand what it feels like to make hard choices, take risks, and make the choices that put family and community first. But here's the truth. Holly Springs is growing, whether we want it to or not. Rising costs are putting pressures on family and small businesses, and traffic steals our time. Many worry that their kids won't be able to afford to live here when they grow up. But I believe we can do better. I believe we can build a Holly Springs that is healthy, happy, and affordable, where our neighborhoods are walkable, where local businesses thrive, and where prevention means fewer families get left behind. This election isn't about politics, left or right. It's about us, who we are as a town, and the future that we want for our families. And together, I know that we can create a Holly Springs that will still feel like home 20 years from now. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you. I want to just say I apologize for sounding a little croaky. I have laryngitis right now, so I hope everybody bears with me. But I tested, and I'm negative for COVID, flu, and strep and everything, so we're good. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and the Government Relations Committee, the Town of Holly Springs, and the Holly Springs Police Department for being here this evening and for hosting this event. I would like to take a moment to also acknowledge 9/11. Today and every day, we honor the lives lost, the families and communities that are forever changed, the courage of our first responders who remind us what true service looks like, and the country that came together afterwards. We saw what was possible when we put our differences aside and focused on community, safety, and healing. We need that again right now. Political violence has no place in our democracy. As a community, we must lead with compassion, resilience, and unity. We are neighbors first. Together, we must reject violence in all forms and commit ourselves to building a future rooted in respect, safety, and progress. Hi, I'm Sarah Larson, and I'm running for Holly Springs Town Council to not only bridge people, policy, and progress, but to also bring humanity back into politics. Vital local policy and services are not political. Even though each of us have been endorsed by either the Democrat or Republican Party, we are running in a nonpartisan municipal race. We are called to serve the residents, to listen, to lead, to collaborate, and to encourage civic engagement. I'm looking forward to this evening's civil discussions. Thank you.
Josh?
Hello, everybody. Good evening. My name is Josh Prizer. I'm honored to be here running for town council. So my family and I, my wife and 3 children, moved here back in 2019 from Toms River, New Jersey. In Toms River, I helped my community by being a volunteer firefighter. And part of being a volunteer firefighter, the good and unfortunate thing is that you get a little peek behind the scenes of the community and the local government. And so you see the good, the bad, and often the ugly. And, you know, in my later years there, before we moved down here, I saw not a bright future for the town, and we decided to find a place to live. And that place, ultimately, we decided on was Holly Springs. Holly Springs is a unique place. We saw the beauty in it that was already there just 6 years ago, but we also saw the promise in the future of what could be, and we've already seen some of that come to fruition just in the 6 years that we've been here. So when we moved down here after we settled in, I decided I would like to get into community service again, and so I looked for ways in the local government to get involved, and that ended up ultimately being in the planning board. So on that planning board, I've learned a great deal about the town. I've learned about the growth, the costs associated with that growth, responsibilities of town government, strategy, and also infrastructure. In addition to the planning board, I also am on the Pine Springs Preparatory Academy Board of Directors, where I serve on the Facilities and Finance Committee. I also am on the board of the Hero Golf Tournament, where we've raised $150,000 over the last 4 years for first responders. As a professional, I'm a vice president of sales where I manage 8-figure budgets. I look forward to tonight and answering all the questions. Thank you.
Joe?
Thank you. Tonight I come before you as a guest of this political forum, hosted by an organization that supports small businesses in a town that values economic development and community. And we do it at a time of great divide and polarization, on a day indelibly marked in all of our psyches 24 years ago, and the day after a political assassination. Yet, even under the weight of such sadness, life goes on and hope persists. The direction of our town is to be determined. On this panel tonight, you'll hear differing views and see varying levels of experience. But what is shared is a deep belief in the future of Holly Springs. When I look around this panel, I see a man who served, a veteran, a father, a husband. I see a man who served as a firefighter, a father, and a husband. I see a councilwoman who is an engineer, a mother, and a wife. I see a physician, a mother, and a wife. I see a community servant, a veteran, a mother, and a wife. Each of them is a fixture of this town, and it would be a shame if that truth was buried under a sea of words and the weight of emotions. Because we can never create the change we want to see in this country, in this state, in this county, if we do not start doing it right here in this municipality. My name is Joe Cucurullo, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Annie?
Hello. My name is Annie Dries, and my family and I have called Holly Springs home for the past 8 years. My husband, 2 kids, and I are proud to live in this vibrant, growing community. Professionally, I'm an electrical engineer, not a politician. I'm a problem solver by nature, someone who thrives on making decisions based on data, logic, and what's best for the long-term success of those around me. I've spent my career looking for solutions and driving results, and that's what I bring to the table in public service. In 2023, I ran for town council because I felt called to serve and to make a difference in Holly Springs. The community trusted me with this responsibility, and I take that trust seriously. Serving on the town council has been a promise I've kept and one that I've honored with hard work, integrity, and a commitment to being present for every resident. In the last 2 years, I've made it a priority to engage with you, whether that's showing up at town or community events or meeting with residents to hear your concerns. I believe in action over rhetoric, and I've always said I can't solve a problem I don't know about. That's why I'm always listening, learning, and always working to be a strong advocate for Holly Springs. I am not just asking for your vote today. I'm asking for your trust, your confidence, and the opportunity to continue to serve Holly Springs with the same dedication and commitment I've brought since day one. Together we can build an even stronger, more prosperous future for our families, our neighbors, and our children. Thank you for your support, and I humbly ask for your vote to re-elect me to Town Council. Thank you.
Tim?
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you to the Holly Springs Chamber of Commerce, our moderator, and everyone here tonight joining for the important discussion about our town's future. I'm Tim Forrest, and it's been an honor to serve Holly Springs on Town Council since December of 2021. As someone who, after 9/11, spent a lot of time overseas in the Middle East and other locations, I'm a retired Army colonel, a husband, a father, and I've spent my life focused on service, whether in uniform, in the overseas, or here at home in Holly Springs. Thank you for electing me in 21. Over the past 4 years, I've worked hard with my colleagues to deliver real results. Together, we've secured recently $236 million in state infrastructure funding, the largest in our town's history, to modernize signals, widen roads, and improve safety. We've expanded water and sewer capacity throughout the region, and we continue to do that with our projects with Tri-Rivers and Sanford and Fuquay. And we've invested in parks, greenways, and recreation while supporting small businesses and major employers that keep our economy strong. Holly Springs is now the second lowest tax rate town in Wake County and should be the lowest tax town by next summer. This does not happen by mistake. It takes years of planning, budgeting, and working with partners among council and the entire staff and others to make this happen. But our work isn't finished. Holly Springs is growing rapidly, and my focus is on smart, balanced growth, keeping our town with its character of a small town while making sure roads, schools, and services keep pace. I want Holly Springs to remain a community where families put down roots and seniors know they're supported. My promise is simple. I'll keep listening, keep being transparent, continue working with everyone to deliver solutions that benefit our entire town. Thank you for the chance to earn your trust and your vote.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you all for your willingness to serve, your willingness to put yourself out there, subject to criticism and everything else that comes with the service that you're pursuing. So thank you all very much. Our first question this evening, I will read it and then I'll tell you who goes first. If you could change one thing in our UDO, our Unified Development Ordinance, what would that be and why? And the first will be Sarah.
Okay, thank you. One thing that I would change in the UDO, I think right now we have it set up pretty fairly. The town is growing, and I know that council currently and council before have done a really good job at getting us where we are today. One thing, you know, in the UDO that we need to continue to look at is as we grow, parcels of land tend to change. And so just making sure that we're always working with the citizens and making sure people are knowing what's going on ahead of time, whether that's through working with our HOAs or having more town halls. I think making sure people are aware of what's happening is a big step in what's going on in UDO. Pardon me. Recently, you know, the town had an information day at the farmers market where they talked about some updates that were coming on with the UDO changes and the budgets that are going to come, and that's going to go to town council for vote soon. And so those things happen that we need to constantly look at changes based on the needs of the town. So I would just continue to be working with the town and the community on communication with those changes.
Thank you. Kara? It is, I asked your daughter and I've already forgotten. Is it Kara or? It is Kara. Thank you. Would you like to hear the question again? It's, if you could change one thing in our Unified Development Ordinance, what would that be and why?
In general, I think I would like to see the town have a vision for the future. And I know that there's been a lot of plans for the future development, but just making our town more walkable, having more community centers and supporting local businesses. Right now, Holly Springs, our current tax base is about 12 parts residential to 1 part commercial. And I really think that especially as a small business owner, it would be great to see a little bit more investment in small businesses and making it easier for permitting and red tape, cut through some of that red tape. But I really think that with the UDO, if we can clearly see the future that we want for Holly Springs and set that vision, then every development choice that we are looking at can be filtered through that lens. So instead of reacting project by project, we can set a vision like the kind of town that we want to hand to our kids and use that as the measure for decisions. I don't know if you guys have heard of Simon Sinek and his celery test, but when you have a clear vision, it becomes obvious what fits and what doesn't. So you can check him out. He's fantastic. Lots of good information on leadership. But I think that's how we make our growth intentional and balanced and true to what we want as a community. And with the UDO, we can kind of continue and make sure that we're following and making the town the way that we want it to be. So, thank you.
Annie, if you could change one thing in our UDO, what would it be and why?
You know, when I first started on council, I asked the development team to, I wanted a way to better understand what the ramifications of the UDO, what they look like in real life. You know, so I asked for some examples, and it turned into a development tour. So our amazing development services staff, they got us all, they invited all the town council and the mayor in a van and took us around and showed us different neighborhoods and said, we made this change because you can see what it's like without it. It was really helpful. Great question. If I could change one thing, water resource management policy, we have different factors that change the prioritization. And those include so a development project could make certain concessions and like green space, offer up more green space opportunity, offer utility and infrastructure improvements, and that would increase its prioritization on the water resource management policy. And one of those things that you can change is that you can change your prioritization with is affordable housing. And that is an option that is never used in Holly Springs, or it hasn't been in the 2 years I've been on it. So I would really like to re-examine that policy and look for opportunities for all those levers to be actually pulled to change your prioritization on water resources. And secondly, tree buffers. Looking at that big tall building on Main Street on the corner, the tree buffers don't change by the height of the building. And I think that's something we should reconsider. That's it.
Joe, if you could change one thing in our UDO, what would it be and why?
Way to open with a question that can make a lot of people in development services very angry. Currently, right now, the way that we have a lot of zoning and development set up, there's a lot of conditional districting. And depending on who you talk to, they're going to have different opinions on how conditional districting works, in the sense of the town has a great deal of control with the conditional districting of the kind of projects that we are seeing come to fruition, which could have a great positive impact for the town in the level of control that they have in making sure that the output is a quality project. On the other hand, conditional district zoning with the level that the town currently has as far as control could also make projects very expensive. So you could look at certain small and medium-sized developers who could say, well, it's kind of expensive to build in Holly Springs, and because it's expensive to build in Holly Springs, we maybe are not going to do the project, or we might want to go to a different direction, or something like affordable housing or workforce housing could be very expensive, and this is an issue that's brought up consistently. So if I could change one thing in the UDO, I probably would look at including some areas of by right zoning, which would allow for a little bit more of a clearer path for some developments to get through. But it is a very complicated process as far as going and changing the UDO. When the last time this was done, there was a large consulting firm that came in and did this, and it went through. It's not a quick fix. So just to be clear, I could have all the wishes that I want, but that doesn't necessarily mean that one person on this council could make those changes. It would have to be a joint effort brought forth by multiple council members in coordination with the staff.
Tim, if you could change one thing in our UDO, what would it be and why?
Hey, I appreciate the question. Just for the listeners in the room and those may listen to it later, the Unified Development Ordinance is really set up to be it's law. Ordinance is law at the town level. But it guides not just development, it guides a lot of aspects of our town. With that said, honestly, one of the biggest changes I'll make right away, and there's a lot of little changes we need to make, absolutely. We have to continually update it. But plain language. Currently, when you open up a UDO and try to say, I want to build a driveway extension, I'm a resident, want to build a driveway extension, it gets difficult. So, because it says see chapter here, see diagram on this page. So plain language is the first thing I would go through to make sure it's understood by anybody that opens it up. They don't need to have a planning and zoning background or be an engineer. So I will say our UDO has done a great job of helping the town, combined with the strategy of the town over the UDO, to develop where we're at today in our tax base. We're roughly a 70-30 split, and that is going to change drastically in about 8 years to about a 35-65, where businesses pay 65% of the taxes for the town without raising a dime. And part of that's the way the UDO is designed. The requirements we put on businesses and developments coming in, building the dual sidewalks, building the curb and gutter, it does well. So we have to continue to improve on those. Second thing is we did a great modernization in 2022 when we first came to council, and we changed the UDO a lot. And we revised several chapters over the last several years to modernize them. And the good thing about planning and zoning is they're very well educated. We make sure they go to the most current schools and they understand proper zoning techniques in the 21st century. We've been very blessed with that. But we do need to continue to update it continually and do the annual revisions in different chapters, and don't let this go by the wayside. So with that said, plain languages, but also we need to look at the structure, the face of the buildings. So I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Josh, if you could change one thing in our UDO, what would it be and why?
So I think I agree with Tim in terms of it's a very cumbersome process, right? It needs to be constantly reviewed, but you also have to have the right counsel to be on there to work together and really work through, the changes that need to be made and do it in a functional manner. But the one thing that I probably would proactively do, and I kind of will piggyback a little bit on Joe, but I think we could do a better job of the town could in terms of proactively zoning areas of the town, and you can do that, in the shape of the future that we want to see. It doesn't necessarily mean that that has to stay that way forever. It could change. But if developers come in and don't have to go through that process, we can encourage some small and medium developers to build here. We could also lengthen that or shorten that lengthy time and process that it takes to go through that rezoning, and hopefully pass along. You hear a lot about affordable housing, and I think there's 100 different ways you can define that, really. But really, the best way to have affordable housing is to have the builder have cost savings so that they pass those down to the end user. So by proactively rezoning, they don't have to go through that, sometimes year-long process, which obviously incurs expense after expense in the time factor, and have that ultimately have the right developer come into the right zone that we've already proactively zoned. So that would be my thought and my change. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is someone with equal power as other council members. How would you approach decision-making and foster collaboration? And Joe, we'll begin with you.
Well, I think it's important that you can communicate with the people that you work with and that you also are able to listen to the people that you work with, even if you maybe have varying opinions or different ideas and visions for the town. So in a sense, as far as fostering collaboration, I think it's very important that you have a council that is willing to work with each other and is willing to communicate with each other on a fairly frequent basis. Speaking maybe a day or so before a meeting might not be the best way. So you need to have consistent collaboration and conversations with your colleagues, and that is, I think, one of the best ways to foster that collaboration is simply just through communication. Thank you.
Josh, as someone with equal power as other council members, how would you approach decision-making and foster collaboration?
So I think collaboration is the majority of this job, whether it's for fellow council members or it's developers or if it's neighboring town managers or neighboring town leaders. Collaboration is the majority of this job. I mean, it's a relationship business. And then I'd add on to that collaboration with the community, right? Listening to the community, hearing the different aspects, hearing the different views of where the community is. It's all part of it. And so you really have to keep an open mind. You really have to, as Joe said, communicate. You have to constantly touch base, whether you agree or disagree. You have to work hard to understand the position of maybe somebody that you don't necessarily agree with, right? And as we build out, right, understanding the developers and their perspective and them understanding yours and making sure that you come to a place that's going to benefit the town and the residents. And ultimately, that goes as well for, working with your council members and coming to a conclusion or hopefully a conclusion previous to a meeting on where they sit and you've conveyed your opinion appropriately. So that's how I would approach it. It's 95% of my job now is collaboration and relationships. And I think it all comes down to the relationship and having mutual respect and listening. Thank you.
Sarah, as someone with equal power as other council members, how would you approach decision-making and foster collaboration?
Yes, as everyone has alluded to, this is a board, and so we are called to work together. The residents are our key stakeholders in our town, so if we're not listening to our constituents and working together collaboratively, we are doing a disservice. And that's, this is what this job is. We are voted in to serve the residents as a trustee and a delegate, where they know that we're going to be able to work together with our fellow board members, our staff. We have a town manager who then goes through and activates the plans that we vote on, but then also working with our fellow municipalities of Fuquay and Sanford and sorry, Apex, Cary, Raleigh, you name it. We're all interconnected here in Wake County, and we need to be able to work with our representatives at every level. And so that fostering that deep trust and listening will help us elevate our our town and keep us moving forward. Thank you.
Tim, as someone with equal power as other council members, how would you approach decision-making and foster collaboration?
Hey, I appreciate it. As the only 4-year serving council member running for re-election this year, I've had several years to practice this craft. It actually started before that in my last decade in the Army, serving both in United Nations and NATO headquarters, having to hold U.S. interests in every conversation, regardless of the other nation's interest. Now let's power that down to local here, what I've done the last 4 years. So with that said, working with other council members that have the same power is great. But actually, before you can even have that single conversation, you have to be informed. The agencies and other governments we work with here in Holly Springs include things like CAMPO, RTA, Central Pines, multiple chambers of commerce in the area. I mean, Tanya's is the best. Wake County Public Schools. We have to work with, we meet with other councils to collaborate on joint projects such as Apex, Cary, Fuquay. In addition, we've met with Raleigh at points as well. So as we go down there, we also have to look down. We have to talk to staff, the experts, read reports. On a Friday afternoon at noon, you get a 1,500-page report. You got a family vacation, guess what? By Tuesday, you got to know that and have done all your conversations. It's difficult. It's not easy. It's not an easy job. So with that said, we also have to work with other government agencies such as NCDQ and many others to figure out a way ahead for the town. So it's really a 360 view. It's a top and bottom view that you have to have on council before I can even begin to discuss with my fellow council members the impacts, the successes, and the overall, win or lose for the town. Now, with that said, every council member for the last 2 councils, I have either had coffee with on multiple occasions, talked on the phone, whatever it may be, to make sure that we could hear each other clearly and not be misunderstood. Thank you.
Annie, as someone with equal power as other council members, how would you approach decision-making and foster collaboration?
Thank you. So a number of years ago, I was co-captain of the Carolina Roller Girls, and which is not NATO, but I did learn I did learn a valuable lesson there. You don't always have to like your teammates, but you have to respect each other. And I think that holds very true on town council. I believe, like I said in my intro, I believe in data-driven decisions. So I think getting information, whatever it is, looking at it honestly and discussing it together, collaborating. Tim and I, of course, have met before and speak often on the phone. But looking, again, as I believe Sarah said, towards the common good. There is no room for ego on town council. Thanks.
Thank you. Kara, as someone with equal power as other council members, how would you approach decision-making and foster collaboration?
Well, as a provider, I have spent the last 20 years of my career listening and working together with patients to figure out a health plan that works for everybody. And also, I have been the president of a nonprofit, and with a nonprofit, working together, we have to collaborate, and you don't get to make the decisions all on your own. So I have really spent a lot of time figuring out a leadership style that also is very collaborative as well. I like to have my team at my office involved in the decision-making process as well, so we can best serve our patients. And that's really the approach that I bring. I'm data-driven, practical, and I really like to focus on solutions that make sense. And that's why, especially at my office website, and on my town council website, all of my plans are posted publicly because I believe that transparency really builds trust. And I welcome challenges because I believe that when we all work together and we can walk through challenges and talk through ideas openly, we get stronger solutions for the whole town. So, and I think that's the kind of leadership that Holly Springs deserves. Just collaborative and working together to create a better community for everybody. So, I had something else I forgot. But yeah, I think it's important to just to work together. I mean, no matter what, we're not alone in this, and in building a town that we can create a better future for our children that we can pass this town on. I think it's one reason to remember to always keep working together. Oh, I remember what it was. There was years ago I read something that I've always kind of carried with me when I think about politics, and it was that it used to be like back in the 70s and 80s, like politicians had to live together in Washington, and when they lived together in Washington, they worked together. They worked together, the kids were on the same teams, they went to barbecues together, and they just got so much more accomplished. And I've always kept that with me, that when you work together with your team, no matter what side you're on, you get things accomplished. Thank you.
All right, next question. We'll begin with Sarah. The creative arts are essential drivers of economic vitality, social connection, and quality of life. Do you support town investment in the arts sector? And how would you work to support and enhance the arts as part of your economic development policies?
I had to go buy a lottery ticket after this. Being first and second is quite exciting. Yes, I do support the arts. I, I was in band. Love arts and music and all of those things. So I know that currently, there's an arts council trying to get back up and running. There's an arts group that has an event tomorrow, I think, downtown. And so art is alive, and it really brings the community together. And I know that there's another mural being put out. So if anybody's interested painting a mural, you can look at the town website. So there's things coming online, which is very, very exciting. Part of the Holly Springs strategic plan is vibrant community, and that covers parks, culture events, and I'm not going to say it correctly, the big celebration where we're really old next year, sesquicentennial celebration, and the new Festival Street design. So when everything comes online, that's really exciting. So right now we have about 15% of our budget allocated to the vibrant community, which is $17.7 million out of our $117.7 million. So we have a decent investment in the arts right now, and just making sure that we continue to collaborate with our artisans in the community and our residents. And it comes, again, with communication and making sure we're having spaces where people feel welcome from all walks of life to share their art with us. And so I would advocate for that, and I'm excited that the arts are alive in Holly Springs, and I'm excited for the event tomorrow and the council that's coming online. So yes, go arts.
Tim, the creative arts are essential drivers of economic vitality, social connection, and quality of life. Do you support town investment in the arts sector? And how would you work to support and enhance the arts as part of your economic development policies?
That's a great question. I'm glad to see it. I understand there's an arts council that is finally formed. I'm looking forward to it. Arts is a significant part of our culture. It's how we express ourselves. It's how we show respect to one another. It's how we show our beliefs in one another and our history and our future. So we definitely need it. How to do that as part of our economic policies, I think, is the second part of your question. Honestly, we have many different ways we support many organizations in town. The Arts Council should be one of those through that program of a gifting. However, we also need to make available sides of our buildings and other places we can put up art very low cost, easy for people to do. I know that was one of the things that requested recently was how do we um, encourage it to foster and grow. So we need to keep that up. But honestly, people love the arts. I love the arts. I've grown up with it my whole life. I'm glad to see we're moving in that direction. I look forward to supporting it. People want a balanced town. As Mayor Dick Sears used to say, you know, live, work, and play. Well, that includes the arts. That includes appreciating who we are and where we come from and where we're headed. Holly Springs has a rich history. I think we should celebrate it. I think we should embrace it. I think we shouldn't forget it. So that can go along a lot of lines. At the same time, as we continue to develop, obviously it's in the strategic plan. Thanks for mentioning that, Sarah. That's something that I know I voted on and fully agree with. And so as we continue to grow our town, we need to embrace the entire town. It's a multicultural town. It's a different town. And as it continues to grow, we need to make sure we embrace the entire town in our Arts Council, just like we need to do in all of our policies. And that will actually impact our economic policies as small businesses develop off of that, medium and large businesses develop off of that. And I appreciate the time.
Josh, the creative arts are essential drivers of economic vitality, social connection, and quality of life. Do you support town investment in the arts sector, and how would you work to support and enhance the arts as part of your economic development policies?
Sure. So yes, obviously, definitely support the arts and investment in them. I think when it comes to like sculptures and paintings and things of that nature, as it is referred to in the arts category, I think that betters the town. You know, Eagles Landing Park, I believe, has a bunch of sculptures going in there that we've encouraged submissions for and such. But also, Sarah mentioned, band. I think, with the downtown, or excuse me, with the development of the entertainment district near Ting Park, I think there's an opportunity for us there to really do some more local events from a musical standpoint. We just had a couple successful concerts at Ting Park. I think we could do more of those. And with that comes revenue, right? Selling tickets for that. And getting some revenue for that to help pay for the continued growth in other areas, I think is a smart economical decision. But as it comes from the downtown development and how we build that out, I think the art should play an integral role in that in that process. And we got to solicit the community. Kind of piggybacking on Tim a little bit and saying, soliciting some local artists to help us with that, I think would be a great idea. And continue to listen to the community and what types of art they would like to see more of. So, thank you.
Kara, the creative arts are essential drivers of economic vitality, social connection, and quality of life. Do you support town investment in the arts sector, and how would you work to support and enhance the arts as part of your economic development policies?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. As Holly Springs grows, residents want more than subdivisions. They want a strong sense of identity. Arts and culture are vital tools for economic development. A vibrant cultural scene attracts businesses, supports tourism, and keeps families locally engaged rather than driving somewhere else for entertainment. Already, developers are investing in mixed-use projects downtown, like the Overlook on Main apartments, which includes amenities designed to create a more vibrant core. This is a moment to expand investment in our cultural center, support festivals, local arts programming, and encourage public arts in new developments. National research shows that for every dollar spent on the arts, local communities see an average of $5 in return in economic activity through dining, retail, and tourism. For Holly Springs, it's not just culture, it's good for business. Arts and culture shouldn't be just an afterthought. I believe that they're central to building the kind of destination town that attracts talent, employers, and families who want to stay rooted here. Thank you.
Joe, the creative arts are essential drivers of economic vitality, social connection, and quality of life. Do you support town investment in the arts sector, and how would you work to support and enhance the arts as part of your economic development policies?
Yeah, thank you so much. So we love to support local artists at our business. We do it regularly. And there are a ton of local artists that could always use that support. So I think there's ways to do it from a from a town perspective, and also fostering it through development. One thing I would love to see, and there's been talk of this before, is a performing arts center here in town. That would be an amazing addition from an economic growth perspective. Bringing in a performing arts center. I mean, I cannot tell you how many students we have at our business that are full-fledged involved in dance. Okay, dance studios are a thriving business in this area, not just in Holly Springs, but in the surrounding areas. We have amazing dancers in this town that travel all over the country. They go to the Macy's Day Parade in New York every year. It is a big part of their life. They dedicate a significant amount of time to it outside of their academics. And so I can tell you just firsthand knowledge, if we had a performing arts center here, we could probably have a pipeline to large-scale performances just from the students that attend the dance studios right here in this town and surrounding areas. So frankly, from an economic standpoint, if we're looking to generate revenue, I think a performing arts center, if we were to prioritize that through some type of incentivization and public-private partnership, that we would have a home run right there. Thank you.
Okay. Get myself organized here. See if I can shake these things up a little bit better, Sarah. Annie, public comment has recently been moved to the end of council meetings, which some residents feels discourages participation. Where do you stand on this change?
I didn't answer the arts question.
Oh, you did? I am so sorry. You know what, Annie?
I can
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Okay.
I'm old, so that's always my excuse. The question again is, the creative arts are essential drivers of economic vitality, social connection, and quality of life. Do you support town investments in the arts sector, and how would you work to support and enhance the arts as part of your economic development policies?
Thank you. So yes, I do support that. My thoughts are kind of all over the place, so bear with me. At this year's council retreat, I actually was the one who brought up, when we were talking about UDO changes, was re-examining our mural policy. So I have already been an advocate for the arts on town council. I was actually discussing with a few people creating an arts council from the town, but then I found out that there is an active arts steering committee. And I thought how much better it is for it to be an organic movement from the people of Holly Springs. So I'm really excited to see that come to fruition. Also, Sarah mentioned the Art Walk. The Art Walk is next Friday. Okay. And to pony off of what Josh brought up on music, and Joe as well, I think we need more music performance space. There's a local music school that has an annual recital, and I think they have to rent out this space 3 times to fit all their students through. We have a lot of music schools in our community, a lot of music performers. And this kind of brings top of mind to me is where we are right now, the Cultural Center. I think Holly Springs has outgrown the Cultural Center. I would love to see a bigger library. Our only library is teeny tiny down the hall. Our performance space is too small. I would like to work together with Wake County to make a plan for what we want this building to be when we grow up, whether it's a performing arts space or a library. But we definitely need a performing arts space. Like Joe mentioned, it will bring in revenue to the area, whether through a public-private partnership. I think that's a great potential. So yes, I do support the arts. Thank you.
So I'll start the cycle of names again, Annie, to give you a chance to catch your breath. So Josh, public comment has recently been moved to the end of council meetings, which some residents feel discourages participation. Where do you stand on this change?
So I believe that decision was made because there was some instances of people coming in and commenting and then not sticking around for the meeting and hearing the issue in which they were commenting on. So I would say the one thing that I would say about public commentary is that it's important, it's essential, but it's also important to understand what you're commenting on and hearing, the full story. So I would support it. Perhaps there's some middle ground, and looking at maybe, general public commentary that might not be towards an issue that's being discussed that meeting, to be addressed at the beginning of the meeting. And then if it specifically pertains to a project, that you wait until that project comes up or towards the end of the meeting, so that council can to understand your point of view in adjacency to the actual project. So that's where I would stand on that. I think I'm willing to listen and to what the public has to say, but I do believe in the way in which, in the spirit in which it was moved and why, because it's important for our residents to stay informed as well. Thank you.
Joe, public comment has recently been moved to the end of council meetings, which some residents feel discourages participation. Where do you stand on this change?
Well, I've sat through meetings and done public comment at the end as a resident before I was involved, and I actually found sitting through the meetings quite informative. It actually brought me closer to some of the decisions that were going on and piqued my interest in some of the areas. I understand why some people might find it prohibitive to wait till the end of the meeting, but frankly, the meetings are on average about 2 hours. And so I think one thing we want to be sure of is that we don't have town council meetings that turn into performative comments, and it's very easy to do that if it's at the very beginning of the meeting, and you really have to want to get up and talk about what you want to talk about if it's at the end of the meeting. So to be honest with you, I think that's one of the benefits of it being at the end of the meeting, is that the people who really want to speak and have something to say really are going to wait around at the end of the meeting. We had people that have come from everything from, trash collection and leaf collection and whether or not the brown bins are big enough. Well, that was a recent one that we had, and that person sat through a 2.5-hour meeting. Whether or not it's at the beginning or the end, I think the most important thing is that we do have public comment and that we're responsive to it. I do know that some people that I have encouraged to go do public comment for issues that they've had, it's been very helpful for staff to actually have people there. If they emailed and they said, "Hey, I'm going to go do public comment this week. I want to talk about X, Y, or Z." It's been very good for staff to have the opportunity to have the various department heads there so that they could respond and discuss. The beginning of the meetings are very structured, and you have a lot of development and zoning issues that generally come up, and those really need to be given a lot of time at the beginning. So if you are a resident and you want to have discussion on your issue, it's probably better to have it at the end of the meeting than it is at the beginning. I don't find it to be particularly prohibitive to be at the end of the meeting.
Annie, public comment has recently been moved to the end of council meetings, which some residents feel discourages participation. Where do you stand on this change?
Yes, thank you. So I have been an advocate for making it easier to sign up for public comment. I worked with the town clerk to kind of recommend that we more clearly say when. What is the window? When can you sign up for public comment? When does that window start? When does it end? Are there any rules on signing up for public comment? Like, did you know you can't sign up for someone else to speak? Yeah, you can only sign up for yourself. Well, all that information is now available on the website. I do believe public comment should be earlier in the meeting. I've only been on council 2 years, but in that time, we had a meeting that was easily 3 hours, and we had a gentleman with some serious medical issues. He was in a wheelchair, and his sister waited all that time to speak about something that was very straightforward, and I felt awful that he had to wait in that situation. At that same meeting, we actually had a gentleman come, and he was there to speak about a trail that was going to run through his property, and we voted on it before he was able to speak. So yeah, I think it should be earlier. I've spoken to the mayor about it. He knows my mind. Yes, I think it should be easier for people to speak.
Tim, public comment has recently been moved to the end of council meetings, which some residents feel discourages participation. Where do you stand on this change?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Being on council for 4 years now, I actually was there when it used to be at the beginning, and now I see it at the end. The one thing I do like about it being in the end is actually when they speak in public comment, the next thing is other business where we can talk to them. And actually, they're still there and we can ask them questions. A lot of times they'll come at the beginning and leave. And so by the time it comes to other business, I've got questions that I can ask during other business if they're present, or we can discuss it as a council. But I can't do that if they're gone. So we've actually been able to solve some issues with the resident right there by having it toward the end with other business. In addition, the one thing I don't think I've heard yet is also you can email public comment in off the website and the link. And that's actually, to me, really good as well, because you can attach documents. You can put whatever you need into it, and it goes right to the mayor and the council, and of course the town clerk keeps it on public record. And you can actually see it, and you can get it on a Thursday. It goes to everybody all at once. You can see it on a Thursday, read it. If there's something in there actionable, or you need to ask questions on, or clarify a policy on, or whatever it is with the staff, you can actually engage the staff early. Both are actually very positive. There are some certain situations that if we know ahead of time, maybe we could accommodate some people. I would agree with that. But by and large, I've enjoyed being able to actually have dialogue during a council meeting with somebody who's been impacted. And then the email site, I just want to remind everybody, please, if you want to make a public comment, always email it. You can always come in and speak as well. But we can actually look at it sooner and action it sooner as well if we have concerns or a way to weigh in. I appreciate the question. Thank you. I yield back my time.
Sarah, public comment has recently been moved to the end of council meetings, which some residents feel discourages participation. Where do you stand on this change?
Yes, I have also been to town council meetings where they've been 2.5, 3 hours long, and someone just had to talk about yard waste bins, and they had to wait for 3 hours to be heard. I think if we are to be transparent and held accountable, we need to make sure that the residents know that their voices are heard and that we value them. We serve the residents, not developers. Developers don't live with the projects after they're done, the residents do. And so that is that is how we can be these trustees of the residents. We serve them, and by collaborating and listening, we can make better choices. As far as having that time to talk with residents back and forth, we should offer other opportunities to ask questions, such as town halls or other opportunities where residents can have this back and forth opportunity to get their issues handled. And with the other business, if that comes down to communication, that maybe people didn't know if they were speaking at the beginning of a meeting, that they could wait until the end to have some dialogue, that could have been a communication issue that we could solve as well. But the residents should always be our priority, and that's why I would want to serve town council.
Kara, public comment has recently been moved to the end of council meetings, which some residents feel discourages participation. Where do you stand on this change?
I think that as a town council member, I believe that the purpose of council is to speak for the citizens, is to be a voice for the residents of Holly Springs. And I feel that the decisions that we make are important, that the council makes, but I also think it would be very good to make it easier to be able to listen to the community. I think having the questions at the beginning of the meeting allows for more resident engagement. I think that we also should maybe even make it a little bit more accessible for residents to be able to have their concerns. The reason we do this is to make a better town for our people. And we could even go out to meet people where they are, having like pop-up town hall meetings where we can listen to residents and their concerns. Informal listening sessions where we are able to take more feedback from residents. And I think that being able to have the engagement throughout the meeting is important. And really, there are a lot of residents who want to hear and be a part of the meeting, but these meetings that start at 7 o'clock are sometimes really late for people to go. If they go for 2.5 hours, that might be late, and parents might not be able to stay up, and they might be worried about their kids, getting safely to school. But that's what they want to speak about. Seniors might not be able to stay out that late, and especially driving after dark. As an eye doctor, I know that a lot of people don't like driving after dark. So I think that making it easier and more accessible for people is important. As a council member, we're here to listen to what our citizens are saying. Thank you.
Okay. Our next question will begin with Sarah. You really should play the lottery tonight. Do you think the town is on the right path for balanced growth? Please explain.
Thank you for that question. I think it depends on honestly who you ask. A lot has changed. You can ask anybody how long they've been here. You're going to get a different answer. We've been here since 2014, and we could drive across Highway 55. It was before the Target Center was fully open, before Ting Stadium and the Salamanders ever hit a baseball. And so a lot of things have happened in that time, and things that were coming on now have been voted on and approved years ago. I mean, the construction on Holly Springs Road is from the 2018 traffic bond. And so some of the things we're seeing now have been in the pipeline for a while. Obviously, we had a pandemic, and cost of materials have gone up, and some projects have been pushed down the line. So some of these things that have been coming for a while. And I know that, a lot of projects come to town council, and that's how we have our UDO, so we can approve and disapprove, or they can in general. But there's about 20% of developments that actually get approved. And so what we're seeing is just everything just kind of caught up right now. But overall, I think we are growing smartly and wisely. I think a lot of that frustration, like I'm just going to be on that roundabout, is communication and just making sure that the residents know where projects are and the timeline of those projects, and making sure we're seeing the future land use and those projects that are coming down the line, where those are and where those sitting, and if we have a good pulse of where the residents want to see in town. So it's always about engagement, it's always about communication, and it's always about listening. But overall, I think right now it's we're growing, and having traffic issues and development issues means the town's alive. And I think that smart growth just means that we need to balance that and communicate that with the residents.
Kara, do you think the town is on the right path for balanced growth? Please explain.
I think I've been here since 2009, and I've seen a lot of changes in this town. And I think that we could make a more concentrated effort to balance our growth. Right now, it feels like we're going to a lot of developers and big subdivisions. And I think if we want to preserve the sense of community that we moved here for, that all of us chose to move to Holly Springs for, is that sense of feeling and home and community and the downtown and the vibrancy. I think that we need to be more conscious, make a more concentrated effort about how we expand and grow. I really think that if we require developers to put in community centers, or sort of, not a community center, more like a neighborhood hub with local businesses, smaller houses, townhouses, we can have these pockets of community where people can walk to, and that will help with our traffic. It will help actually. Studies show that just reducing 5% of car trips can cut peak congestion by 20%. So if we can make it more walkable and make these community hubs that grow Holly Springs in a way that keeps it sustainable, then I think that it will make big improvements on traffic. Also, walkable downtowns can boost sales by 20 to 40%. And these little community hubs, if we make them, will preserve that sense of downtown, but also keep our tax dollars local, and families can shop here instead of having to drive elsewhere. And that will also help support our small businesses. So I really think that if we can make the quality of life here, maintain it the same that the reason why we moved here, then it will be able to grow in a more sustainable way. Thank you.
Tim, do you think the town is on the right path for balanced growth? Please explain.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. First and foremost, growth and development is not just a single subdivision or subdivisions. It's a myriad of topics that intertwine to make an actual strategy and a plan. With that said, as many of you know, in 2020 our population was roughly 42,000. Today it's over 54,000, on track to be over 60,000 in 2030. And it was, as already pointed out earlier, a lot of these plans were approved in prior councils, and we're living through some of that. So with that said, I would also want to bring up some topics that we need to include in that plan. It's not just the building itself. We have done a good job through our ordinances and our development and our planning and zoning to reduce approvals to 20%, which is fairly low. The advent of our water policy helps also slow down growth to make sure we're getting the right development that we want in a town. So as we approve new developments, only when infrastructure, schools, and services should be there to support it. We have to protect the community character as a part of managing growth and development. We have to ensure a balance in housing with mixed housing and other products that actually help the entire town, not hurt it. We actually have to have economic development to help pay for the new infrastructure and new things we have, so the taxpayer is not burdened with that. Fiscal responsibility, holding developers accountable. In 2022, we moved to a developer pays his fair share, his share of what his development cost. Prior councils would actually subsidize part of developments prior to that. Many people aren't aware of that. But we held them accountable starting in 2022, and we had a lot of pushback. And we will continue to hold them accountable. They have to pay their fair share. We're not going to subsidize their developments. They need to pay their way. So, and also spend your money wisely to help development. Community engagement, every project, whether it's economic development, whether it's a new policy, whether it's a new development, is looked at by all citizens and have the opportunity to talk. Thank you.
Josh, do you think the town is on the right path for balanced growth? Please explain.
Yes, I do. I think we're doing a really good job strategizing. I think really, I mean, listen, all the projects that are going on right now and have been completed have really helped improve the town's infrastructure. And in doing so, when we approve these projects and these developers, that helps keep the burden of paying for this off the taxpayer, all right? Our taxes are they've went up extremely high through the Wake County taxes. And to have more burden put on our businesses and our citizens, to me, is unacceptable, especially with the tax revenue that's coming in from some of this development with the bio companies that have recently developed. But you know, I think we've done a good job because it's not only the infrastructure, but it's the greenways. You know, this development helps improve the greenways, expand the greenways, expand the roads, widen the roads. You know, all of this infrastructure improvements can be helped paid for by the developers. Now, that being said, it has to be done with a future outlook. And that future outlook isn't 5 years from now, it's 10, 15, 20, right? It's when is this project going to come to fruition? What else is being built around that at the time? So you have to take a very strategic approach to this. Not only that, you know, I believe we also, you know, if you look at, you know, go on Zillow, we have a housing shortage. We have a lot of businesses building in this area, a lot of people that want to come to Holly Springs, and we don't have a lot of housing to either move around if we want to, or if we're aging out of our neighborhoods and want to go somewhere else, we need more houses for our residents and for future residents to accommodate the businesses that are building here. Thank you.
Annie, do you think the town is on the right path for balanced growth?
In general, yes, I do. I would love to see the town. We did an affordable housing study 3 years ago, and as part of what I've seen done with affordable housing studies is a housing inventory on how many of what kind of house is available in the municipality and what the occupancy rate is. And I think that's valuable information and data we should be collecting regularly, maybe every 2 years, to have a firm grasp of what the needs are for people moving to Holly Springs, what we have, what we don't have, and make sure we're prioritizing the right development projects. It's tricky because we need to look at this holistically. You know, the impact on our roads, on our schools. I was an advocate for, right now with development plans, we get a school capacity form from the Wake County Public Schools that says these schools will have capacity, you know, you'll have enough capacity in elementary, middle, high school. So that is something that we consider now in development plans that we didn't before. But we also need to be particular, look at details like ingress, egress, and the impact not just on that development, but on the neighbors around it. So I think there are improvements we could make that would, to make sure we're picking thoughtful, intentional development. But we also, it's a balance, right? Because developers, if we have them jump through too many hoops, all that does is drive up the cost of development as well. So to make Holly Springs a place where everyone can afford to live, where our kids could live one day, should they choose to, we need to be mindful and create the right balance. Thank you.
Joe, do you think the town is on the right path for balanced growth?
I do, but I think it's important to take a little bit of a trip back down memory lane and look at how things developed over the past 10 or 15 years. So at one point, when the town was developing its early stages, there needed to be more incentives to get developers to come here. And so, like Tim referenced, at one point, the town was subsidizing developers. And that is true of all towns that don't have a lot of growth. They need to attract that growth in order to drive their economy to move forward. So at one point in our town history, we had to subsidize and really incentivize that growth. Then we got to a point where it was like, whoa, there's a lot of growth here. We have a lot of people coming. And then some people started to say, whoa, we have a lot of traffic and we have a lot of issues that are starting to develop from that growth. And so the town started to take a little bit of a different approach and say, well, we don't really need to subsidize growth anymore. We're in demand. We can sit back and we can set the design standards that would allow for the certain types of projects that we need, but also making sure that the developers are paying their fair share in the sense of investing in that infrastructure. So that would mean road widenings along frontages and greenways and path widening and infrastructure improvements and storm and sewer improvements, which is what we see now at planning board. When developers come, they have a lot of improvements that they have to make, which is also one of the reasons why developers say it can be very expensive to build here. So the reason why I mention the subsidization to where we are now is when we're talking about balanced growth, we have to look at, well, where are we now and where do we need to be in the next 10 years? And if in the next 10 years, what we want to do is start to prioritize some of the holes that we have in maybe services or commercial, I can tell you we need more commercial, and I can tell you we need more housing. But I'll tell you also that with more commercial and with more housing is going to come more traffic and is going to come more demands and more services. So the key word is balance. It's something that I talk about a lot. I'm going to run out of time. I could talk about 4 minutes on this. But I'll say that at the end of the day, we're going to have to prioritize what we need moving forward very quickly.
Yeah, you're first. Uh, I'm telling you, you got to play the lottery.
It's fine. It's fine. Throw it out. It's fine. Well, I mean, whatever.
Sarah, what is your opinion of the town of Holly Springs using condemnation on private property in order to force the vision the town has versus the vision of private developers and landowners?
Can you just repeat that one more time?
I sure can. What is your opinion of the town of Holly Springs using condemnation on private property in order to force the vision that the town has versus the vision of the private developers and landowners?
Thank you. Thank you for picking my name first again. I appreciate it. Yes, this is tricky, and these are one of those situations where these are not easy decisions, and this is not something that just Sarah Larson on Town of Holly Springs Council would vote. Make decisions on. Like it's a board, and it's collaborating with experts and the residents. And I think that looking through and respecting our UDO, people, buy houses and set up their, family farms and everything in a certain way, knowing where the town is going to grow. When those things change, people are like, well, I moved here for this reason, so I had, trees in my backyard, and now this road widening is happening because we're expanding. Those things happen with growing towns, and it is unfortunate, and but it's going back to building that trust with the residents and communication when something's coming down the line so they have a chance to fight for their land. I mean, we serve the residents, and your private property is just as important as someone else's private property. Again, it's not a one-person decision. It's working with other council members, the residents, the experts in the field, county, you name it, and the developers to see what we're going to do. With that, we legally can't tell someone that they can't sell their property. So if you're adjacent to a property and they're going to sell it and it's under the UDO, that's where, again, the communication is key, and having that trust with the residents, knowing that you can talk to council to either advocate for you or find the information needed to make decisions. So it's tricky, but it's not a one-person decision.
Annie, what is your opinion of the town of Holly Springs using condemnation on private property in order to force the vision that the town has versus the vision of private developers and landowners?
Thank you. As Sarah said, this is a tough question. We recently had a home come up that had been in the family for a while, and we were doing a road widening, and we were able to shift the road widening to one side to accommodate them, so they were able to keep their, I believe it was to keep their house, or to have the road out from not right outside their front door. So sometimes we are able to accommodate, but sometimes, particularly with road widening, I mean, the road is where it is, and roads are a certain width. So we fundamentally have traffic issues, and it's a difficult problem to solve. I believe there are times where we do have to use condemnation, but my preference is to always try and negotiate. Some of the problems we've also discussed are about realigning roads. And that's an opportunity where I feel like we can be more creative. We don't have to go through somebody's property to align a road. If there's an alternative, let's seek it out. But it's a numbers game. There's money involved, and it has to be thoughtfully done. People should be appropriately compensated should condemnation happen. But, it is a last resort to me personally, but there's also timing, cost, a number of factors that go into play, and balance is something we've really got to consider. That how quickly we need that development done, what are the alternatives, and how important is this road project. Thank you.
Kara, what is your opinion of the town of Holly Springs using condemnation on private property in order to force the vision the town has versus the vision of the private developers and landowners?
Thank you. My general philosophy is to stand with the people of the town, and I think that it's important to respect people's land and their property. I understand that sometimes there are certain situations where the road may need to be widened, but I think coming up with, like Annie said, some creative solutions to be able to come up with a different alternative, or even, in the case that there were not any creative solutions that could that we could come up with, to negotiate with the people who we had to work with, rather than just kind of forcing them in a certain direction. I think it would be important to work with the council, work with the people who are kind of put in this position to find out the best solution that would make everybody happy, because no matter what, as we grow as a town, we want to keep our citizens happy and engaged, and I think it's very important to respect people's land, and going to the having to just condemn somebody's land to be able to kind of force them into a position is not really something that I kind of personal philosophies align with. So I think that it would be really important to just work together with the council and make creative decisions. And obviously, we want to have growth, but not at the expense of our people. So, thank you.
Joe, what is your opinion of the town of Holly Springs using condemnation on private property in order to force the vision that the town has versus the vision of private developers and landowners?
So this is a very complicated question because actually none of these cases are always similar, so there's really no cut and dry answer to this. Additionally, we also had a recent court case in North Carolina that is going to actually create some clarity on this issue, and they've recently ruled that towns cannot take or force private property to be given up to be given from one private interest to another. And this is a very recent case, and so I assume there's going to be a lot more litigation and a lot more lawyers looking into exactly what that means for us for the future. Obviously, nobody wants to take someone's private land. And, we mentioned compensation earlier. I used to think that this was a very simple issue. Just pay people a fair share for their property, and then they could move along and the town could do what they need to do. But unfortunately, sometimes it's not just about money. It's not just about, hey, we're going to give you X amount of dollars. Sometimes someone might not be physically able to go somewhere else when it comes to condemning, say, for example, the whole property, not just a portion of the property in front of the home. So it's an extremely complex issue, and I really think it has to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. These issues are going to be those issues where you have to have a council person that you can trust is going to make the hard decisions. These issues are never going to be cut and dry, very simple, and you can have one philosophy going into all these different projects. Because you see a lot, just in my time working on planning board and attending council meetings, we've seen projects that were potentially going to run through properties that had cemeteries on them. We've seen people that have had to give up 1.5 feet and have not wanted to do that. And we've seen different property rights based on different zoning and different eras of the law within North Carolina. For example, ditch to ditch versus other zoning ordinances that were put in other places. It's a very difficult question, but at the end of the day, we have to protect the people's rights first and do everything that we can to avoid that at all costs.
Josh, what is your opinion of the town of Holly Springs using condemnation on private property in order to force the vision the town has versus the vision of private developers and landowners?
So this is one of the detriments of going last, or it's close to last, because everybody's mentioned your topics in one way or another. But in all honesty, everybody's brought it up. This is the tough decisions that you're going to have to deal with as a council member, and this is why, like Joe said, it's important to have the right people. I can think of 4 different instances in recent history that I've seen on planning board, and they've all gone 4 different ways, right? Yes, there can be resolutions. Yes, there could be a denial, and it goes, we deny it and the project goes away. And yes, there could be a happy ending for the homeowner. Ultimately, we are elected here, and it's probably why the reason you see 6 of us and not 15 of us up here is because nobody wants to make these decisions. They're very, very tough. So it is on a case-by-case basis. Ultimately, we need to make the best decision and understand all parties where they're coming from, but ultimately we have to make the decision for the majority of the taxpayer. So we really have to do a good job of understanding all aspects of the situation and how that effect is going to be not only just on the property owner, but how does it affect the town? How does it affect the future of the town? If it's a roadway, is that going to benefit a majority more residents than one homeowner? And again, it's has to be fact-based and not feeling-based, and we have to do what's right for the majority of the residents. Thank you.
Tim, what is your opinion of the town of Holly Springs using condemnation on private property in order to force the vision the town has versus the vision of private developers and the landowners?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Here's the reality. This issue has to be looked at from the homeowner's perspective, the landowner's perspective. They have history there. It's personal. They've raised their kids there. They've grown there. They may have aged in place there or lived there 20, 30 years, in some cases, the further you get away from town center. So I think about that with every case. How would I feel if somebody was going to do this to my land? And that is the number one thing you have to do as a council member, is not forget they're your neighbor, they're your friends. Your kids may have played sports with them growing up. You may have been to their house before. So any decision by council that impacts any resident, but impacts the town, you have to remember the why. So with that said, I think, Joe, what you're thinking about is the Supreme Court case to Apex on August 23rd of 2025, where the North Carolina Supreme Court came out and said very clearly to the town of Apex, you cannot, this is a Supreme Court case, not the town of Holly Springs, you cannot condemn land for a developer, for them to run their water sewer. You can condemn land for the good of the town. So if the town already had it planned, when you read further, if the town already had planned to run that and they had to run it, well, that's understandable. But because the developer was building off Iridia Parkway on the Apex side, they were doing it strictly for them. So the town of Apex was told by the North Carolina Supreme Court, no, you can't do this. So that's actually clarified some of the issues, and multiple court cases are pending behind it. And as alluded to by Joe earlier, this is going to be a hot topic for the attorneys and developers and towns and counties for quite a while. How do you interpret these things? So moving forward, I tend to like that. I tend to like, for the town you have to build a pipeline to the Cape Fear River like we're doing. Well, you need to do that, right, for the long term of the town. But if a developer, he should go and negotiate very well and try and purchase the land if it's not in the right of way. Thank you.
And this will be our final question of the evening. And we'll begin with Tim. How would you evaluate whether a proposed commercial or housing project is worth approving?
That is a great question. So, how do I evaluate it? Pure and simply, what's the good for the town? How does the town benefit from it is the first question I have to answer in my head before I even open the packet, before I talk to a developer, before I talk to economic development, before I talk to planning and zoning. What is the good of the town? And if I can't answer that question, then I'm going to question that packet really, really hard. Where do we benefit? So getting past that, then come the other questions that you have to look at. If it's economic development or development, whether it's a big neighborhood, a small neighborhood, a mixed-use facility, I hate to say it out loud, but I think we need another gas station over near 12 Oaks and Friendship with EV chargers. However, does this packet meet a smart and balanced growth? Does the traffic impact analysis support it? Or what kind of road improvements and infrastructure improvements will they be required to have? How is that going to impact transportation, water, sewer? Do they have to build a pump station, a regional station, develop gravity lines? What do they have to do to make this successful? Where do those run to? What right-of-ways or what people's land does it have to run to make it successful? So, what is the true economic impact once these homes are built? What's the tax value base to the town? Are they going to put in the greenways and sidewalks we want? Are they going to do fee in lieu for the park recreation fees or water fees that we charge every developer and every economic development or developer to help set our cost and our expansion of our water system? So what's the community engagement? Have they met with residents realistically? So, and then what's the sustainability and future planning? Do the materials meet our requirements in the UDO? Are there going to be long-term materials built in these facilities or houses that'll help the residents with their maintenance costs lower? I can go on and on, but I thank you so much.
Annie, how would you evaluate whether a proposed commercial or housing project is worth approving?
Boy, you've got some great questions tonight. So it's a long process. Let me start. So I like to go to planning board and sit in the back and listen to the presentation before planning board. I find that really helpful. It gives me a amuse-bouche to the development, whets my appetite, what it's about, what planning board is asking about. Then in the build up to that, I visit the site if I'm not familiar with it. I will look at the neighborhoods adjacent to it. I'll review the future land use map. What is this area supposed to be? What is the density of this project, and where does that density make sense at this location? I'll even sometimes show up to get rush hour traffic. I've done that. What is rush hour traffic right now from the spot, and what would it look like when that new development comes online? Thinking about the impact, not just of the development, but what the impact will be to the neighbors around them. The sustainability of the infrastructure is something I consider. Are they going to put up a pump station that will need to be totally redone when we get more development in that area? Are they going to be laying down pipes that will need to be replaced with larger pipes when we get to that area? So I'm thinking about all of those things. When town council gets a packet, I read that thing cover to cover, and then I come up with my list of questions, and I send that to town staff that dig into those details, because those details matter. They matter. They matter to me, and they matter to the people who are going to live there, and they matter to the people who are going to live next door to there. So yes, it's a long process.
Joe, how would you evaluate whether a proposed commercial or housing project is worth approving?
So this is something that we do regularly on planning board, and it's one thing that I think that residents don't realize is actually how long the development process is. So it could be several years before a project makes it to a final vote for town council. So there's a lot of evaluative measures that go in throughout the entirety of the process. When you look at exactly where we are right now as a town, our land that's available to us in Holly Springs proper is starting to become more limited. It is more limited now than it was 5 years ago. It is far more limited than it was 10 years ago. So moving forward, to answer the question simply and not drown you in a million different planning board terms, the end of the day, we have to look at where we have gaps in services, where we have gaps in needs, in housing and commercial, and we have to juxtapose that and balance it to the cost and the benefit to the town. And so we need to look at where we have service gaps and holes and fill those before we start to really run out of land that would be desirable to develop those things. I think that's really important. One of the problems that we're going to start to have is that some of the land that is left is maybe topographically undesirable, and that means it might have a lot of slopes, it might have a pond, it might have some streams that become natural barriers that have to really be reworked for developers, and so that really makes the development process much more expensive. So right now what we have to do is, one, prioritize the things that we need and find the areas that we could fit them, and two, when we have those really complex pieces of land, as the land becomes more scarce, we have to figure out how we can do that in a cost-effective way to get those projects across the finish line.
Josh, how would you evaluate whether a proposed commercial or housing project is worth approving?
Yes, really what it comes down to, this is a cost-benefit analysis, right? And you're looking at that cost of what's the cost to the town and does it benefit the town, right? And, does it benefit, both figuratively and literally, what is the value of that? What's the benefit to the town? Does it help us improve infrastructure and utilities? Will it bridge some of those gaps that Joe's talking about? There's 100 different things that come into that, but it really has to be looked at really from a cost-benefit analysis, right? I can think of several projects as of late that have been approved where the developers have brought more to the table than they were required to by the UDO, right? And it's trying to maybe get more from our developers. They're required X, Y, and Z for, developing that project, but can they bring more, right, in order to get this past the goal line? But will that help our residents, get better water pressure? Will it help improve the sewer lines that are, on the cusp of, being antiquated, excuse me. So, you have to really look at, and then, a big thing, and Annie mentioned it too, is, where is this project placed and what's the density currently in that area? What's the density of the project? How is that going to impact the current residents that are sitting there? So really it's that fine balance of really, how is this going to affect our current residents and how does it improve the current residents and the future residents of this town? Thanks.
Kara, How would you evaluate whether a proposed commercial or housing project is worth approving?
I consider myself a big picture thinker. So, just like I had said earlier, I think we need to look at where the town is going to be, what we want the town to be 20 years from now. And I think if we filter it through that lens, what we want for our children, the town we want to hand over to our kids, will that project fit in with the town that we're imagining? And I think that we have to filter it through that lens and then also look at the details of it, of course. We need to say, are these developers going to invest in the infrastructure? Are they going to provide like an improvement in quality of life for our residents? I think that I would review the site. I would read all the details. I like to make sure that I know everything that's going on so that I'm not, and of course work with the council to, where everybody's a team and make sure that I'm hearing residents' inputs and everybody on the council. But I also think we need to really look into the like, is it going to benefit the quality of life and the health of our residents? Are people going to health? Healthcare is very important to me. Are we going to make our town more walkable? How is this going to affect traffic and mobility? Can places? Are we creating more sprawl that's going to create traffic, or can we get there easier by foot or bike? How is this going to support small businesses? And are there anchors like grocery and childcare nearby? How is it going to support our commercial sector and small businesses? So I think really just looking at the big picture, like healthier families, is it going to create safer streets, a stronger local economy, and really make sure that we're not going to increase traffic stress, because the more kind of suburban sprawl that we're doing is just creating more stress and stealing our time with traffic. And I think it's very important to create the town that we want to hand to our children in the future. Thank you.
Sarah, I know you can't believe this, but you're the last person with this question.
It is harder.
How would you evaluate whether a proposed commercial or housing project is worth approving?
Yes, thankfully, yes, thank you for, I guess, drawing my name last. It is harder, so thank you. Everybody's really nailed it. There's a lot that goes into approving these developments, and thankfully we have a strategic plan. We have a UDO. We need, we give out surveys out to the residents to highlight what their priorities are, and that helps with the overall balance, of the budget and where our priorities need to be. And so that gives us our foundation of growth, which is the development and the planning and the zoning, but then that trickles into the quality of life, which is our parks and recreation, our arts, and then that will obviously impact our traffic. If we're being smart growth, high density goes near the downtown area where people can walk to enjoy the restaurants and the commercial bases that are there. Further out, yes, we can't have these pockets of residential areas where they have to drive 20 minutes to get to a grocery store. That's impacting our traffic. And so consistently speaking with the experts, what do we have? The experts. And working with our town staff, they do a really good job at working with the developers. So by the time they get to planning board, they know if it has checked all the marks, for our UDO, if they recommend approval or not, and then it goes to council. Again, I will just reiterate that communication is huge, and that we just want to make sure that the residents are knowing what's going on and if there's going to be a change in those plans, and to look for more ways to be out in the community to make sure that we're developing at the right pace at the right places. So having more HOA gatherings and trickle down information to town halls, I think that's just really important as we go through and approve the growth of Holly Springs. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank all of you for your thoughtful answers to these questions this evening. We've now come to the concluding portion of tonight's program. Each one of you will be given 3 minutes to make your closing statement. And we'll begin with not Sarah, but Kara.
Okay, well, I wanted to really thank you all for being here tonight. I thank the Chamber for putting this together. I know this was a lot of work, and to all the other candidates, because stepping into public service, no matter what, is takes a lot. So, and thank you all for caring about the future of Holly Springs. So, in my kind of big perspective of looking at the town and the future of the town, I read an article last week that I wanted to share with you because it connected all the dots for me, and I hope it will for you too. Last week, the 2025 World Happiness Report was released, and for the 8th year in a row, Finland has been ranked the happiest country in the world. And it's definitely not because of the weather. I think they have the darkest winters in Europe. But at the peak of COVID, they were happier than we have ever scored here in the United States. And when I looked into the research about why they were happier, it's because of how they designed their communities. And I thought that's something that we could learn from as we're moving forward in Holly Springs. This is an opportunity that we have. But the people there live longer, healthier lives because their neighborhoods are designed so you can walk safely to the park, to the store, or a cafe. And I think that we can model that kind of future right here in Holly Springs. With our walkable neighborhoods and greenways, kids can bike safely to the park and seniors can stroll to cafes. We can implement a direct care program that puts people first, saves families money, and helps us stay healthy because we're prioritizing prevention. Actually, here in North Carolina, Union County adopted this program for their municipal employees to begin with and saved $1.2 million in the first year. We can put that money back into investing into greenways and walkability and supporting our small businesses. But they also have neighborhood hubs, little centers of shops and local restaurants and gathering spaces that strengthen our small businesses and keep our tax dollars local. Actually, studies show that when we invest our money into a small business, 60 out of $100, $68 stays in the community in a local business versus $42 staying out of $100 in a corporation. So. But with these little neighborhood hubs, we can keep our tax dollars local, reduce driving, and that will reduce traffic on 55. But this isn't like trying to be about another country. It's about remembering what makes a community strong: health, safety, connection, and opportunity. It's about building a town where families can afford to live, businesses can thrive, and where we actually know each other as neighbors. For Holly Springs, that means building a town where every resident has a chance to thrive and families feel connected. I would love to continue this conversation with you, to hear what you value, what you love about living in Holly Springs, and what you'd like to see improved. Because the best ideas from our future come from us as neighbors working side by side. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kara. Joe?
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for hosting this evening and for the audience for sitting through and listening to all of our answers. We really appreciate it. I'm a small business owner in this town, and I get to see this town through a lot of different lenses as a planning board member, as a business owner, as an educator, and I really feel like I have a good finger on the pulse of sort of the community needs and desires. And one of the things that I've noticed is that once I sort of delved into the area of politics, the way in which sometimes people perceive you is slightly different. And so what I would encourage residents to do for the remainder of this campaign is to really take a look at the individuals. I think every candidate up here tonight did a really great job of focusing on the issues that matter to Holly Springs. And really, they're really not partisan. Water and sewer and infrastructure are really not partisan issues. And so I really would encourage people when we are out canvassing, to give every single person up here a chance, and to, if you run into them and they're walking up to you on your driveway, I know that's not the most enjoyable thing sometimes to have a random person walk up your driveway, but give us a few minutes of your time, talk to us, ask us questions, and I mean that sincerely. My priorities are very simple. They're maintaining public safety first and foremost, and this is something that I've talked about from the beginning of the campaign. If we keep our public safety strong, we keep a thriving economy, we keep it a place where people want to live and raise their children and come back to. I want to make sure that we keep our taxes low and see through the vision that began about 10 or 15 years ago when we started to bring in the life sciences. I want to make sure that we continue to foster great community events and services and make sure that all of our residents feel excited and happy to be part of this community, even if you're someone that's not out and about at every single community event. I see a lot of people out at all the different events, ribbon cuttings and such, and not everyone is involved with every single one of those things, but we need to make sure we continue to have large-scale community events that people enjoy and come to, because that really brings us together. It gives us a sense of oneness and a sense of community. There's a few priorities that I'd like to mention tonight that didn't come up tonight. I think you guys did a great job with the questions, by the way, because you basically obliterated my closing statement. I redlined about half of it because of how many great questions came up of really substantive issues. But one thing that I didn't get a chance to speak on tonight that I think would matter to most voters with families here is I talk often a lot about teen entertainment. It's something that I think is one of those service holes that I referenced tonight in some of the answers to my questions. I really would love to see us prioritize some teen entertainment, some family entertainment. I think there's a gap for those young people here from sort of like that early teen to late high school age of a place where they can go hang out and really socialize and enjoy themselves. Thank you all very much, and I'm about to run out of time, and I hope to see you on the campaign trail.
Josh?
So thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event and giving us the opportunity to share our vision. I really appreciate it. I want to thank everybody here tonight as well, and those watching from home and those that will potentially watch this in the near future. By being here, you're doing the most important thing a voter can do, and that's educate yourself on the people who want to represent you. So kudos. I also want to recognize the police officers that have come here to keep us safe, and all of you in the attendance as well. And I also want to extend my gratitude to my fellow candidates as well. It's not easy, and whether I agree or disagree with any of your perspectives, I definitely respect the time, the energy, and the passion it takes to put yourselves forward. It's truly a very, very tough road, right? But hopefully tonight has shown you that I am prepared to lead this town and represent all the residents. I put in the work to understand the job of what this job requires, and I believe I'm ready to hit the ground running. This is not a ceremonial position. It's a serious job, and it carries real responsibility. The decisions we make on town council affect your homes, your families, and your future. Holly Springs is growing, and people want to be here. We're one of the fastest growing communities in North Carolina and one of the most desirable places to live. That's something to be proud of. It really is. But our biggest challenge right now is how we manage that growth and how we balance welcoming new residents while protecting the quality of life for those who are already here. That means working with developers in a way that ensures the cost of growth aren't placed on the backs of our taxpayers. There's a pathway where both sides benefit, where developers can succeed while residents get the high quality development our community deserves. It also means continuing to create an environment where our small businesses can grow and thrive, because strong local businesses are the heart of a strong community. And it's just as importantly, it means making sure our first responders have the resources, the staffing, the equipment they need so that every resident continues to feel safe and protected in our neighborhoods, our parks, and our streets. I believe I'm the right person to help move Holly Springs forward in a way that is strategic, responsible, and focused on the people who live here. If you'd like to learn more about me, I invite you to visit my website, josh4hollysprings.com. Send me an email. Find me at one of the places where I'm going to be in the next few months. Or if you see me on the street, please stop, ask me my thoughts. I would love to entertain them. Thank you all very much, and I appreciate it.
Tim?
Thank you. First and foremost, thank you again to the Chamber of Commerce, our moderator, and most importantly, the residents of Holly Springs who took time to be here tonight, and those that will listen online. Forums like this matter because they're not about sound bites or slogans. This is about accountability and trust. You're listening to people who one day potentially be leading this town on council, and they need to understand this is about accountability and vision and trust. So with that said, I'd like to recognize that all candidates seem to think the town is moving in an overall good direction on the growth and development with a lot of challenges ahead. It was great to hear that tonight. Also, as we continue to move on over the last 4 years, I've worked hard to deliver results that improve daily life for our community. Together, we've secured $236 million of state infrastructure funding for our roads, 55, Avon Ferry, Sunset, Holly Springs, New Hill, many more. It's the largest in our history to modernize signals and roads. So growth doesn't outpace our resources. We've done investments in parks, greenways, and recreation facilities that bring people together. We strengthen our economy by both supporting small and medium and large businesses. We need to be better at that. Holly Springs is the heart of all of us, and we have to do it together. In addition, one thing we didn't get tonight in a question was about police and fire. I find that interesting because honestly, they are doing very well because there's a good strategy over our public services like that, and I'd like to see that continue. They put their life on the line every day for us. When you pick up the phone, they're there, and we need to remember that. So, but leadership isn't just about checking off projects. It's about building trust, listening to residents, and making sure every decision is grounded in values. My guiding focus has been and always will be to continue to put service before self, solutions over politics, and the good of Holly Springs over everything else. Looking ahead, we face many challenges and some crazy times out there. I think we could all agree on that. But there's also tremendous opportunity. While growth is coming and we are unable to stop it, we can shape it, we can make it what's best for Holly Springs, ensure development is balanced and thoughtful, protecting the character of our neighborhoods, investing in infrastructure before it's overwhelmed, maintaining the sense of community that makes Holly Springs special. It's also important to note that in the most recent satisfaction survey from the town, which is very scientifically well done, 93% satisfaction rate with the town. It's actually very good. I'm proud of the work we've done, and I'm more excited about what is ahead. With your support, I will continue to work to make Holly Springs a place where families can put down roots, seniors are supported, businesses large and small can thrive, and at the end of the day, this role is not about me, it's not about us. It's about the entire town together, all residents moving ahead and fostering and growing together. So we have to build a town we're proud to call home, not just for today, but for future generations to come. I am asking for your trust, your partnership, and your vote this November so that together we can keep Holly Springs moving forward. Thank you.
Sarah?
Thank you so much. And thank you for the Chamber, the Government Relations Committee being chosen to go first so many times and last. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for the town of Holly Springs and the Holly Springs Police Department for being here this evening and hosting this event. Thank you to my fellow candidates for an informative discussion, and thank you to everyone in the audience who came out tonight. Special shout out to my husband Justin and my kids Edie and Donnie and Finn for all your love and support, and for my friends who keep asking me, like, why do you do this to yourself? Because if not me, then who? My family and I, like I said, have lived in Holly Springs since 2014. Since then, I've immersed myself throughout the community. I've been appointed to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, where I also sat on the Tree Advisory Committee and the Downtown Plan Advisory Committee. I'm a graduate of the inaugural Citizens Academy. I've served on my HOA board as Social Committee Chair, Vice President, and I'm the current President. I substitute at our schools, volunteer on PTA boards, and I am a representative for the School Board Advisory Committee. Prior to moving to Holly Springs, I've also worked as a program manager for a downtown association where I served as a liaison between residents, small businesses, and town officials. Locally, I've worked for Bombshell Beer Company, Endurance Fence Solutions, and as executive director of the Holly Springs Runners Project, where I continue to serve on the board. I also volunteer for the Holly Springs Food Cupboard and recently became a Rotarian as I truly embody service above self. These experiences have given me a strong network across Holly Springs and a deep understanding of how our town decisions affect everyday life. I continually lead with experience and empathy, and I bring the knowledge needed to make the difficult decisions that will impact our residents. I am running a grassroots campaign for the people, by the people. As I mentioned, residents are the #1 stakeholder in the community, and I'm here to serve you. No matter if you live, work, or play in a community, local government affects your day-to-day lives. Each election, we have the privilege and obligation to make our voices heard, even if they're a little croaky. Excuse me. And if you have any other questions for me, though, please reach out. You can contact me through my website, larsonforgovernment.com, social media, or feel free to say hi if you see me out and about town, which you probably will. Please feel free to grab any info on your way out, and I humbly ask for your support November 4th. Thank you.
Annie?
Thank you. Yeah, I wish we had gotten to talk public safety a little bit, just because, you know, we made a big investment 2 years ago, and it turns into kind of a buzzword, and I would love to have more details on that. But before I get any farther, I would like to know, show of hands, who thinks these new seats are better? Any? Okay. Okay. Okay, all right, okay. I'm data driven, so I appreciate the responses. You guys know me. I am who I appear to be, a public servant, an engineer, someone who cares about our community, and I really look. I would be honored to have your vote again this fall. Thank you, the chamber. Thank you to the legislative committee. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to the HSPD, and a very special thanks to my 16-year-old son who is out there, who was promised dinner, and it's gonna be late. I'm sorry. Thank you for putting up with me.
Thank you all for being here this evening. It's really important that you all mark the calendars for November 4th. Make a plan, help people get to the polls, know where your polling location is. You would be really surprised at how many calls we get from voters on election day asking where they're supposed to go. I want to thank Tim Congleton for your time again this year, for being a servant to our community to make this happen. We appreciate you. Thank you to the town staff who worked up until the moment this event started to help prepare the space and get these seats in order. Thank you for the residents for coming and being a part of this program tonight, but also submitting incredible questions. Not all were able to be asked. We had a lot of questions that were unasked, but they were really incredible ones. Thank you to the Government Relations Committee and the Board of Directors for volunteering, being a part of this, and ensuring that the Chamber continues to maintain a nonpartisan relationship in our community. Thank you to each of the candidates who participated not only in this tonight, but also in the voter's guide that's now available online. Your service is needed in our community. To what I think Josh, you had said earlier, is there's a reason why there's not 50 people up there. I want to remind you all that next week at 6 o'clock, right here in the same spot, we will be having the mayoral forum. Both candidates have agreed to participate. Both of these candidate forums are recorded and will be available on the Chamber YouTube page. Please remember that it is important to support our small business community. Continue to make Holly Springs a great place to live, work, play, and do business. Thank you all this evening. Have a good night.